Really quick, after I said greetings, can you fit in? I must consult with the elder gods.
Sure.
Mortal Kombat fans will get it.
I'll cut that in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what were
Just
we doing?
We just defeated Jeff Keighley. Now it's time to recover and have a chat. With me today, I have Brad, the artificer of the Hidden Ones.
Ooh, that's. I feel like there's a reference there to something that I'm not quite getting. But hello, everyone.
There is.
Ooh,
And Gerardo, the god of fire and lightning.
aw.
Greetings. I must consult with the elder gods.
And me, I am Hunter, and I am also here. The Summer Games Fest just concluded, guys. Today, as of day of recording, this morning actually, was the final day of the Summer Games Fest. How do we feel about it?
It was overwhelmingly okay,
Yeah,
Huh.
in my opinion.
I think there was a lot of really cool things that at least I personally wanted to see. And I was also surprised by quite a bit, but it was surrounded by a bunch of things that I didn't necessarily care about, or just stuff that just kind of seemed a little soulless, or just games that I'm never going to actually play. Which,
Yeah.
to be fair, is
Yeah.
very E3. That's kind of how every E3 goes.
I feel like that's
Yeah.
how a lot of directs go, and I call them directs, but that's how a lot of these go. There's probably gonna be a good 80% of the stuff that you really don't care about.
I will say the core Summer Game Fest showcase, I think, was structured better than it was in previous years because it felt a lot more quick. It felt like
Yeah.
Jeff Keighley was going from game to game fairly quickly, and most of the time was with the trailers themselves.
I feel like the Summer Games Fest has kind of found itself in a way. It's structured, I think, a little bit more similarly to E3, at least as far as the individual presentations goes, as far as the individual press conferences go, the showcases. But I think that starting off with its own little Summer Games Fest show is kind of cool. Cut all the pre-shows out from E3's past and just get straight into Jeff Keighley going on about video games.
Yeah. I might need to look back on old Summer Game Fest just to verify this, but I felt like Jeff Keighley was more hyped about the whole thing on stage than I've seen him in the past.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot more, I want to say, interesting announcements that were going on, at least during the intro portion, like that initial showcase. And I think that that's
Oh, yeah.
because a lot of the publishers were kind of being a little bit more protective. Like Microsoft wanted everything to be in their Xbox show, Sony wanted everything to be in their Sony show, etc. But I think that now that Summer Game Fest is kind of proving itself a little bit in E3's wake. I think that people are becoming a little bit more accepting of giving the intro show stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I was just feeling it as he was hyped that he finally beat E3 and that Summer Game Fest was his main showcase now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my headcanon for it.
No, I think so too, yeah. What do we think about the individual showcases? We had Xbox, Ubisoft. What about the individual ones, the Day of the Devs?
So the only one that I really watched was the Xbox one. It's the only one that I really cared about. So at least I'll say that one did the best in my eyes.
Going through them really quick, I actually really enjoyed the Day of the Devs showcase and the Devolver Digital showcase as well, even though there were only 4 games in that one.
Yeah.
But I think their performance was fun.
I mean, the Devolver Digital one is always difficult because they're an indie publisher. And so,
yeah,
inherently, there's going to be fewer games, especially since they try to focus on really high quality releases. So, yeah. I thought that it was kind of cool actually watching the Devolver Digital one and then watching the PC gaming showcase afterwards because, AI is machine learning is the kind of the new hotness. And they each had different takes on AI kind of turning evil in a way. I thought that was kind of fun. Did you watch the PC gaming showcase?
Yeah, not to be mean about it, I think the PC gaming showcase was pretty lame.
Yeah, it wasn't as fun, I think, as Devolver Digital's. But it was kind of funny to slowly see these people getting wiped away, though. We also got a couple of cool announcements, too. We have new line of Xboxes, the Porsche Xbox Series X
Oh,
line. I thought that's a weird collab, but they
Not
It
gonna
all look
lie,
is.
I'm
pretty
trying to get
awesome.
one.
They all looked awesome.
Um,
I signed up for the sweepstakes too. Yeah.
yeah.
Why don't we get into what we did during our predictathon? Some of our hopes, our predictions, and just kind of see how well we did for ourselves. What hopes did we end up getting? What predictions did we end up getting right? Not a whole lot. So for our hopes, Brad mentioned that he wanted dates for any of Xbox's first party games. Specifically, you mentioned Elder Scrolls and Fable.
Yes.
We didn't get either of those, but
No. Well, I mean, we did get. Well, no date wise, we did see Fable 4.
the only two games that did get solid dates were Forza, releasing on October 10th, and Starfield, finally, releasing on September 6th. I believe that those are both new dates. I wasn't
Yes.
entirely sure about Forza, but I'm pretty sure that those were both announced during this showcase, whereas before we had nothing. For Gerardo, you wanted Metal Gear Solid Delta gameplay, and I don't think that we saw anything from Metal Gear Solid Delta, actually.
Yeah, it was too soon. I wasn't expecting it. I was just hoping for it.
It's
Yeah.
too soon, and I think just Jeff Keighley's relationship with Kojima, I just don't know if we would see Metal Gear Solid
Yeah, that could
at
be part of it.
anything that he does. And I personally wanted Elder Scrolls 6 to release this year, but you guys gave me a long, detailed list of reasons why there's no way that that's going to happen. You guys
No,
crushed
Hunter.
my dreams.
No
Do you
fun
want
for
me
you.
to add on to that?
Oh, please do.
Yeah, okay. So I saw a separate interview with Todd Howard, and he was saying that he's getting kind of old, so he feels like Elder Scrolls 6 was going to be his last game ever made, probably, at this point.
Oh,
Just,
jeez.
Oh,
just to
wow.
add on to that hardship for you.
How old is he?
Old? I don't know. Let me double check.
I was gonna say old as in like you're in your 40s, 50s, or old as in like I'm a Nintendo executive and I'm never.
He's
leaving.
52. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like
Those
entering
were his words.
Isn't Miyamoto like 73?
I mean, yeah, Miyamoto's a very hard worker though, but for a multi-billionaire, which to be fair, Miyamoto probably is too, but for a multi-billionaire like Todd Howard, who's also a lot of his network is probably in equity, you know, he probably could just retire at any point and his grandchildren will never have to work another day for the rest of their lives. So, you know, I think maybe that's fair. Maybe he just wants to take it easier now.
Or maybe he just expects Elder Scrolls 6 to not come out for 20 years.
Yeah, maybe he'll be in his 70s. You know, because we were definitely not going to get it this year, as you guys drilled into my brain. For our safe predictions, Gerardo, you were expecting Death Stranding 2 gameplay, and I'm kind of surprised that there wasn't any.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, wow.
And you were also expecting the unannounced Kojima game that he was developing alongside Xbox or for the Xbox or something, exclusivity. And we didn't see anything from that either. Nothing from Kojima, actually.
Yep.
Which is kind of weird because of
Yep.
Jeff Keighley's kind of relationship with Kojima. So, I don't know, maybe they just weren't ready to show anything, I guess.
Feels a little
Yeah.
lonely without him.
It was surprising. Kojima appears in the Apple keynote, and then he doesn't appear in
Yeah.
E3 at all.
Yeah, and Jeff Keighley's thing. That's
Yeah.
I don't know. Strange. I was predicting that we were going to see Xbox announce some new first-party franchises like at the show, and we actually did get that. I was expecting like maybe one, but we got 3. We got Towerborn, and we got Clockwork Revolution, which looks pretty sweet. Actually, both of those look pretty sweet. And South
Yeah.
of Midnight. All of these actually kind of
Oh yeah.
bangers. I was surprised.
Yeah. Especially, I really did like that Clockwork Revolution.
Especially after the Sony showcase, where I feel like all of the games were just kind of like generic, like either sci-fi or modern day shooters or post-apocalyptic shooters, all kind of the same thing, different, like more shades of brown type games.
Yeah.
Or they were free to play. Gerardo, how did you describe it? Free to play
Live service,
live service, competitive games, and you know,
cash grabs.
And meanwhile, Xbox
Atrocities to the art of video game creation.
soulless, just corporate. Yeah.
Corporate
Whereas, like,
tax.
not that Xbox isn't some like soulless corporate stuff, but like actually these games look really sweet, and I'm kind of surprised. Like I mentioned during that show, they've switched, they flip flopped, and I don't know. It's interesting to see Xbox go down this route, but Towerborn looks freaking awesome. I'm probably going to at least try it once it comes to Game Pass. Like, why wouldn't I? It looks freaking awesome, right up my alley. Clockwork Revolution. I know that Brad, you were talking about that.
Yeah, that one actually looks really fun. It looks like it's BioShock, but with twists. And also, Gerardo, you had compared it to something else, and it was actually very apt. What was it that you compared it to?
Yeah, it was BioShock Infinite mixed with Sonic CD.
Yes, and I liked those comparisons.
Yeah, this awesome games actually coming out from Xbox's new first-party franchises. It's super awesome. And then, Brad, you were predicting that we would get no firm dates for Xbox titles.
I was very boring with my safe predictions. I used a double-edged sword here, so no matter what, I was going to win.
Yeah, you were either going to get what you wanted, or you were going to be right in your prediction. And
I still get what I wanted.
Yeah, you got what you wanted. Yeah, so you would have gotten what you wanted either way, really. So we did get some dates. You were wrong. How dare you? We had Forza and Starfield, like I mentioned before. We got some new dates. You were also saying, you were also saying that we would have seen something from Kingdom Hearts 4. I think that was based on seeing like the Disney logo, but that might have been Star Wars.
We saw Disney and we saw Square Enix. So naturally, I thought, they might show off in any capacity Kingdom Hearts 4, which, lo and behold, my safe predictions wasn't so safe.
And then turns out the obvious answers were Final Fantasy VII, which, kind of. I don't know why I didn't think about that. And Star Wars, which, why didn't we think about that?
Oh, yeah.
That's
I don't know.
true. It's
just completely went over our heads.
And Marvel Snap.
What? Oh yeah, Marvel. There was all sorts of things. Yeah. We also expected video game TV shows being shown off, and we did get a little bit of that. None from Netflix, from what I understand, which was
I thought
what
Captain
you were
Laser
assuming.
Was.
Yeah, Captain Laserhawk is Netflix.
Okay, that was a Netflix thing, and also a Twisted Metal TV show. I don't know much about the Twisted Metal franchise.
Twisted Metal is definitely up Gerardo's alley. Captain Laserhawk is definitely not up my alley. I had no idea what that was until somebody told me, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm right, but I didn't know I was right.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that has a basis in Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, and it looks like there's a character that's heavily based on Ezio Auditore from Assassin's Creed.
Okay.
That's so weird.
They said they're going to have other elements of other Ubisoft games in there as well.
Is this going to be canon?
No.
Question mark?
I don't think that question applies to this.
As far as our big Thwomp predictions, Miyamoto did not walk on stage with Iwata's severed head and announce a new R-rated Animal Crossing fighting game. Although... Darn, yeah. And man, I was really hoping that Phil Spencer would walk on stage. He did. We saw Phil Spencer, but he just wasn't wearing a butt plug. I'm sorry, Brad.
Oh, did he curse?
Are you sure?
No,
did you check?
Okay, butt plug unconfirmed.
I can still hold that W. We just have to check the footage.
He was sitting down, which would make the tail part just... I don't even want to think about that.
He can stick it in his pants. You don't know what he does after work.
And but we unfortunately did not get any Conquered. The cowards not releasing a new Conquer game.
It hurts my heart, it hurts my soul, and it drains my will to live. But I will persevere.
We'll persevere. We have those new Porsche Xboxes for you. Don't worry.
God.
Gerardo, unfortunately, we did not get The Rock announcing Switch Ultimate, the Switch Ultimate. Sorry, what was your whole deal again? It was like there was a lot of aspects to this, like Labo and Raw.
It was like a Switch like Pro that's like made of Labo cardboard.
Yeah, Yeah,
The
unfortunately, we did
controller's
see.
Rob,
But it turns into a Virtual Boy, and that's basically it. It's just a Virtual Boy disguised as a Switch.
but instead we get everybody 1-2 Switch.
Why don't we go ahead and head into our takeaways, our like main kind of takeaways from the presentation? I really liked Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I thought
Yeah.
that was really interesting. I expected the sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake to be like either. I didn't expect part two because FF7 Remake was a full game in and of itself. So calling it part two didn't really feel right. Like maybe Remake 2 or Final Fantasy VII 2 Remake, but they're just going with a completely different subtitle with it. They're just calling it Rebirth, which I think maybe shows their confidence in this being its own game. Which, to be fair, like, yeah, that's at that point in the story, because Remake ends off when they are leaving Midgar, and that's when the game starts opening up.
Yeah.
That's when you can, like, that's when the open world aspect of Final Fantasy VII starts. And it looks like Rebirth is going to be a more open world experience, which makes complete sense for what they're going for.
Yeah. I mean, Square Enix does weird things with their titles, so part 2 could have worked if we had a Kingdom Hearts 2.8, but I'm glad they chose not to, because I kind of don't like reading that off.
Final Fantasy 7.2.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 7 2.3 squared. Yeah, that's I don't want to deal with those sorts of numbers.
Final Fantasy Roman numeral 7, and then the number 1 typed out, ONE.
Well, don't be Xbox with this, okay?
I think I've mentioned before that I'm also have become an Assassin's Creed fan, and we got a couple of Assassin's Creed games actually shown off. We have the Nexus VR, which is like a VR Assassin's Creed, like, I don't know, 3, Odyssey, and 2 all combined into the same game somehow.
Honestly, it kind of just looks like another VR game that's basically just a tech demo.
Yeah, it kind of seems like a tech demo, but I appreciate that they're going with a mainline franchise, you know? Something to kind of push VR a little bit more. Except it was kind of hard to tell because they kept talking about the Meta Quest. Is this a Meta Quest only? Or like, can I play it
For
on
now.
my Vive? Okay.
For now, probably, I think.
Okay.
Limited time exclusion ?
Maybe. I'm sure that maybe mods someday will come up with like a translation layer or something. Now, we also got the AC codename Jade, which is something that was announced previously, although I don't know if we knew that it was a free-to-play mobile game. Kind of less interested in it now, but I'll at least, watch a lore recap video or something of it just to keep myself caught up.
Did the corporate shilling turn you off with that one?
Yeah, but I mean, hey, that's been Assassin's Creed for a while, so to get out of the Assassin's Creed verse a little bit, I am really liking a lot of the recent Star Wars games that have been coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor are fantastic, and after the mess that EA made of the Star Wars franchise, the video games, for a while there, I'm really glad that things are looking good, and Star Wars Outlaws looks good. I'm hesitant to say that I'm cautiously optimistic, I think is probably a good way to say it, because it looks surprisingly good. I think that the Star Wars video game, whoever is in charge of the Star Wars video games, has kind of learned their lesson and is looking to take the series in new, good directions. And from what we've seen of Outlaws, the little gameplay segment that they did looked freaking awesome. There's no Jedi stuff. It's just like Star Wars, like Outlaws. That's exactly what it is.
That's perfectly fine, because we get our Jedi stuff from Jedi Fallen Order,
the Jedi games.
That franchise. Yeah,
we get the Jedi stuff from the Jedi games. That makes sense. So
yeah,
this game gave me some Red Dead Redemption vibes.
Ooh, that's a fun vibe to have.
I was thinking when they were showing off the space combat and like going into space, I was thinking the space section of Halo Reach, Brad, and also Starlink Battle for Atlas, which is maybe appropriate because Ubisoft is working on this game.
Ubisoft is working on Outlaws?
Yeah,
true.
Oh,
I didn't make that connection.
So Ubisoft did Starlink Battle for Atlas, and they're doing this game. So I'm sure, I don't know how much they recycled, but if they recycled a lot, that's great, because Starlink Battle for Atlas, the space combat, just the combat in general, was really freaking good.
Yeah.
So I'm down to see that, and the way that the shooting and everything worked looked way more Halo Reach. And honestly, if I'm replaying Halo Reach, it's probably those levels because those that was kind
Yeah.
of the funnest part of Halo Reach for me. Some just kind of quick honorable mentions for me. SteamWorld build, that looks awesome. I'm a pretty big fan of the SteamWorld franchise. I have all the games. I haven't played all of them yet. There's not enough time, man. Tears of the Kingdom. This is
Yep.
not enough time. But SteamWorld build looks awesome. Dungeons of Hinterberg surprised me. And the way I would describe it is a 3D Zelda-like that I didn't know I wanted. The art direction looks awesome. Everything about it.
So could you say it's basically Dungeons of Hunterberg?
Fantastic. Bloomtown also, I'm just gonna breeze right past that one.
I was gonna say not your finest moment, but I appreciate the effort.
Bloomtown looked really cool. I would talk more about Spider-Man 2, but we already kind of did that once before, so I'm not gonna bore everyone. But Spider-Man 2 looks freaking sweet. We finally got a release date. That's awesome.
I love Venom. Venom's one of my favorite
Yeah.
Marvel characters, period. Mostly because of its powers. I love it. So, always pleasure to see him back.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the take on the story of this game is really interesting. So yeah, really excited for that one. Lord of the Rings: Return to Moria is the Lord of the Rings game. It's kind of similar to the Star Wars games. They tend to be kind of hit or miss.
When's the last hit?
The like Shadow of War and like
Oh, I get. You know what? I have to bite my tongue. Yeah, I did enjoy the first Shadow of War. The second one's okay, but I really did enjoy the first one.
Yeah, people love the Shadow of War, and I don't know what the reception is. I thought that I heard pretty good things about the
second one
sequel,
was great.
I would describe myself as cautiously optimistic for this game. The art style looks a little cartoony or something, kind of similar to Gollum, although Gollum just looked hideous. So
I don't think they were going for cartoony in Gollum. I just think they just did not do a good job.
Yeah, I think that the light, it kind of looked beautiful, except for the characters and especially Gollum. And
Until
to be
you get
fair,
up close.
maybe that's about accurate. Anyways, to get off my soapbox, that's basically all of the takeaways that I personally had. Gerardo, did you want to get into yours?
Yeah, so the biggest reveal for me was the gameplay for Mortal Kombat 1. I was looking forward to this one a lot. And I'm pleased with how the gameplay looks. It looks pretty fun. They're adding in the new cameo fighter mechanic, which is like, it's basically something that previous Mortal Kombat games have had before. Mortal Kombat 9 had a tag team mode, and Mortal Kombat 11 had basically what the cameo fighters are, but in like a very limited span, only in specific tower combat matches. But now they're making it a mainline feature for all the battles in the game, presumably. And I think it's cool. And then one aspect of that I think is cool is that all of the cameo fighters that they've shown so far are in their first appearance outfits for the series. And they had 2 costumes for Sonya, so there's going to be at least customizable, like multiple costumes that you can choose for each one, multiple skins. So that looks cool. Story-wise, this was pretty predictable for anybody who's played through Mortal Kombat 11 and its expansion.
I have not.
No,
yeah.
I can't say that I have.
Please explain.
11 had 2 endings. The canon ending that this is going off of is the one where Liu Kang is given Raiden's powers in order to fight Kronika, and he defeats her and takes over Kronika's hourglass, which allows her to reset time, reset the universe. But like basically what it is it's like in universe, this is Liu Kang is trying to make a universe where these characters aren't going to hate each other.
So making them like family and stuff.
Yeah, and this was the result of him attempting to do that. So my main reservations about this game, the visual design, because since they're going back to that first Mortal Kombat tournament era, a lot of the settings in this era are going to be very kind of realistic areas, like not very fantasy areas, not very sci-fi areas. You get those high fantasy, high sci-fi kinds of locations in the later games in the series. So that's why I have reservations about this. at least in terms of like how creative they're going to get with the settings of the game. I'm still very optimistic about it. But to move on from there, the other main thing that they showed during Summer Game Fest for me was the trailer for the Twisted Metal TV show. That's another thing that I have heavy reservations about. Well, I'm very optimistic about Mortal Kombat 1. This one I'm not very optimistic about. Just to start off, Sweet Tooth's character design is great. The only thing is that his head's not on fire, which is a little disappointing to see.
It's hard to do that in a live action TV show.
Yeah, last time we lit somebody's head on fire with like with some mask over it, we had Nick Cage and Ghost Rider, and that don't hold up too well.
Yeah, and it's super unrealistic, but it's part of his character design, and it's it's one of his like fundamental like character design, like visual elements that makes him recognizable. But moving on from there, the rest of his outfit is perfect. He looks exactly like he does in the games. I'm honestly surprised that they went this accurate on that design element. So that's good. Going on from there, plot-wise, this is nothing like the games.
Well, yeah. From what I've seen so far, I don't recall seeing a lot of cars.
Yeah. And that's another problem I have with this trailer. So, okay, for the trailer for a video game series that's based on car combat, and we haven't seen any car combat. And we've had 2 trailers for this show so far. We've seen 1 car just driving in 1 trailer. Well, and we saw Sweet Tooth's ice cream truck, but it wasn't moving in the first teaser trailer. And then this trailer has no cars whatsoever. It's just an interaction between these 2. And they're kind of trying to explain some plot elements here. But it's mostly just, they're trying to pass off this joke where they're talking about that song by Cisco. Personally, the joke didn't really hit for me. I'm not sure who the target audience for the show is, if it's supposed to be casual series watchers. I think that's probably it.
Which is going to be pretty weird with a character like Sweet Tooth, because he's kind of extremely insane.
Yeah. And for what they're showing in this trailer, I feel like it implies that Sweet Tooth is going to become like almost an allied character to the main character here, since they kind of get along through their liking of that song specifically by the end of the trailer. Which, that's fine. I would have to see where they go with that. It's hurting my hope for this series. Yeah, and I think this one's an interesting example because I've actually been comparing this mentally to the last Twisted Metal game that released, because that game had live action cutscenes throughout the game. And while those cutscenes kind of look rough nowadays, because that game came out 10 years ago, it was a PS3 game.
You showed me some of them. It didn't look that bad. Because they were live action, and it had a style to them. So
yeah, if you get used to like the visual style of these cutscenes, they have this really like dark energy that it gives the story, and I really liked it. I was a big fan of those cutscenes, watching them back in the day, which is weird because I usually don't like live action cutscenes in games, but I felt like those worked for me at least.
All right.
So I've been comparing that to this new show. I'm very hesitant about the way that they're going with this series.
Yeah, and to be fair, there's not much to go off of yet. And if we're only going off of what we have right now, make your own decisions about that.
Yeah, and moving on from that, I had some like other honorable mentions of games I saw throughout all of these showcases. There was this game called Haunty. It had a really cool, like, black and white, like, art style. It was, like, 2D animated. Gameplay-wise, it was, like, you play as a ghost, and you take over objects and control them to get through levels. It kind of reminded me of Super Mario Odyssey, so I thought that was cool. There was another game called Viewfinder. I played the demo for that game, and I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a game where you, like, take pictures and you press a button and it turns the picture into a 3D space that you can walk into. And,
I've seen that online. That looks like a really cool concept.
Yeah, it's really cool. And later in the game, they give you a camera so you can take custom pictures and turn them into spaces that you can walk into. I just think it's
Wonder
really
how
cool
the
because I love
code
those
for
kinds
that
of puzzle
works.
games that give you new ways to think about reality.
It's really hard to even look and grasp like what Hunter just said. How did the programmer do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
that was something I was trying to figure out playing the game.
like
This isn't the
how do you?
first game to do something like this too, like Superliminal, for example.
Yeah, that one
Yeah,
did
I
that.
just
I was considering that.
yeah,
I don't know. Man, I would like to see the dev process behind a game like this.
yeah. And going even deeper into a mind f game, I think deeper. There was another game called Patrick's Paradox, which is like it comes off as like a simple 2D puzzle game. You're moving around blocks that are like level areas in themselves, and you can go into those blocks, and
Oh, that's
moving them
fun.
around is part of the puzzle. And some of the blocks are the level that you're in itself, so it's like you're going into the same level that you're in. It's like you're moving through different
It's
levels of 3D space.
it's puzzles in
And
a puzzle, but like,
yeah,
oh wow, that sounds that look viewing the trailer, it looks confusing.
yeah.
It
These
Yeah.
like
trips me out.
It looks
nested
great.
kind of recursive puzzles in
Yeah,
some
yeah.
cases.
There we
Like
go.
this is like a recursive puzzle that I'm looking at
Yeah.
right now. Yeah,
Um
it's interesting.
so I'm really liking that idea. I'm looking forward to trying that at some point. Another one was Fortune's Run, which was this really cool PS1 style graphically Doom like it's like almost hyper realistic sprites in motion. I don't know how else to describe it.
It kind of reminds me of those pre-rendered cutscenes that you would see in like mid-generation Final Fantasy games, except that's the actual game, and in some cases it's actually just 2D sprites, like 3D rendered 2D sprites, almost like
Yeah.
Donkey Kong 64 or something.
Yeah,
And
the
like,
character sprites is what gets me a lot.
yeah, it is very Doom like, but like also Donkey Kong 64, and also I don't even know. This is such a unique looking thing. It's
Yeah.
so hard to
It reminds me
pinpoint.
a lot of Oddworld on the PS1. I think that's what it
Okay.
reminds me a lot of. And then the gameplay looks really fast paced and fun. I mean, it's a Doom. Like, moving on from there, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. This game is it's more like a remaster of a DS game on modern systems. I played a demo for this. It's a pretty fun concept and plot. The gameplay is pretty basic because it's a DS game, but I was enjoying the plot and the character interactions. Then there was Airship Kingdoms Adrift, which was an open world airship simulation game. And I just kind of liked the idea of that, the depth of it. I don't know if there's been games like that before, like specifically with airships, but I thought that was cool.
I mean, there's been games with airships.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like a simulator. You get in an airship and you like travel and you like
I know, I'm just twisting you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Then there was Earthless. This one was just a cinematic trailer. It was like a bunch of ships trying to escape Earth that was being consumed by the sun. It just looked cool, but I can't tell what kind of game it is. But I liked the visual style of the trailer.
It's like a card collecting except space exploration thing.
And then there was Mars First Logistics, which was this physics-based Mars rover puzzle game. You have to build a Mars rover from the ground up in order to like solve the puzzle, in order to move an item from one place to another or something, or to like get to one place to another. And I thought it just looked fun.
The example they used was like building a custom robot to deliver pizza or something.
Yeah.
Tears
Yeah.
of the Kingdom in space.
And
Yeah.
then the last one was Wizard with a Gun, which kind of looks like Don't Starve, but with like a lot more action. And I really like the visual style that they had. They also had this animated trailer beforehand for like a little bit of story, I guess. That looked cool.
We've seen a little bit about this game. I forget if we've spoken about it or not in some kind of like direct. I feel like we've talked about this game before at some point
Maybe
in this show's history.
It was announced before this,
Yeah.
but I don't remember when.
I remember seeing this a while ago.
Yeah.
Brad, would you like to start your takeaways?
So normally when I go into any of these events, I already have a predetermined what it is that I'm looking for. Luckily, I was given something I did not anticipate, and that was Prince of Persia. It's a little different though. It doesn't feel or it doesn't look like the or feel like the same Prince of Persia I'm used to overall. But there is a new Prince of Persia game coming out, and just knowing that enough is gets me excited to delve into that world again. Um, but I don't think it's the same world. It looks to be a new take, a completely new take.
A reboot of the franchise in a way.
I guess you could call it a reboot. I'm not sure what to call it. It just seems to be just entirely different. A different take, a different genre. Like when I think of a reboot, I think you're still within the genre. You're just doing it over again, sort of thing, with like a new modern flair.
Well, no, a reboot is like a complete like redo of a franchise.
I guess so. So
And
yeah,
a soft reboot is like kind of still in the same world and the same story.
yeah, soft
just
reboot's
game.
different. This is definitely like a reboot, not a remake. This is all new, but it's still using the brand of Prince of Persia,
Which is maybe necessary because it's been over a decade since our last Prince of Persia game.
That's true. And I don't even. Jeez, I know that they made a Prince of Persia game like a decade ago, but I don't remember playing that one. I played all the other ones.
Yeah, the original trilogy ended quite a while ago.
Yeah. In fact, Gerardo, you let me borrow the last one when that game was out, and that's how I played the Two Thrones. Or was it the Two Thrones or Two Towers? I think it was the Two Thrones.
The Two
There was
Towers, they
the Two
probably get
Thrones.
copyright.
There
Yeah.
was the Two Thrones, but that wasn't the last one.
No, that wasn't the. Well, they did come with one later,
Yeah, and then
Um,
there was the Forgotten Sands.
but I don't know if the Forgotten Sands had anything to do with the other ones.
It was no, yeah, no. There was a reboot one that was just called Prince of Persia, and then the Forgotten Sands was going back to the original timeline or the
Oh,
Sands
that's
of Time
right.
timeline. Yeah,
That's right. Yes. So they did.
I don't remember
make
when
like
the
a
Forgotten
fourth-ish
Sands
one.
released.
That one's interesting. But I do for this game, The Lost Crown. I do like the way the 2.5D like hack and slash Metroidvania style. I always like me some Metroidvania. So
Yeah.
that one's on my radar. I can at least say that. Yeah, that one's on my radar.
Yeah, I do really like
Us-
the idea of because this is almost like the series is going back to its roots, which I really
Almost.
like. But then they're adding in this like hack and slash type combat to it, and I just think it looks really fun.
Yeah.
I think that going for a more Metroidvania style is the right kind of smart move because
It makes for a good game.
yeah, for like 2D platformers nowadays have just gotten so much bigger. And what are you going to do like another linear like level based 2D platformer when Hollow Knight exists? Like it kind of has to be a more Metroidvania type thing, which kind of I mean, we're kind of assuming there's going to be a bit more Metroidvania, but from everything that we've seen with it looks like there's some specific skills, whether they be like combat skills that also work throughout the world, or whether they're like unlockable items or something like that. What they said during the Ubisoft conference was that this is a semi-open world, which to me sounds like progression blocked open world, which is exactly
Yeah.
what a Metroidvania is.
Yeah.
So, and Ubisoft has a lot of experience doing 2.5D platformers, action platformers in this way with the Assassin's Creed Chronicles games. So it's kind of unsurprising that they would go for this approach if they were going to remake Prince of Persia, which is exactly what they're doing. So I think that that's super cool. Coming from a non-Prince of Persia fan, to be completely honest, but you know, this seems like
I mean, fair enough. I love the Prince of Persia games, including the originals. Like, yes, they were slow, but like slow, methodical movements in the original, I enjoyed. I loved the GameCube / PlayStation era, PlayStation 2 era. Those games. One, I like those. I like those games because they were a joy to go through the story. This story kind of it's not the Sands of Time, or at least not that's not what I'm getting at here. They might
Yeah.
incorporate it in some way, shape, or form. It looks more like the 40 Thieves or like Sinbad sort of thing. It doesn't look too much like what the Sands of Time were. Not the same prince.
Yeah, I could
It
see what you're
looks
saying.
it looks like if those more classic Prince of Persia games met Metroid Dread in a way, if that makes sense, especially with the more reaction based combat that it looks like. And I
Playstyle
think
wise, yeah, I could agree with that.
yeah, art style wise, I'm not too familiar with the older games, but it looks fairly Sands of Time to me. Maybe a little bit more edgier. Well, no, Sands of Time was edgy in its own way
No,
too. I
no.
don't know. I don't know. It's kind of
Sands of
different.
Time. Sands of Time wasn't very edgy. Warrior Within was extremely edgy, but that
Yeah.
was also
Okay.
the mid 2000s. That
Yeah,
was
Sands of
it. They
Time
definitely was part of its era.
yeah, Sands of Time was kind of its own thing, but
They
yeah,
went
I don't
back
know.
to it with Two
Now,
Thrones. Two Thrones kind of dialed it back.
Okay.
one of the weird things that I noticed in the trailer is that the devs talking about it, they were saying that the main character is this guy named Sargon, and that the plot of the game is actually that you're trying to rescue the prince. So
Oh,
this might actually
Okay.
be the same like canon. I can't tell.
So not
okay.
technically a reboot,
Yeah,
I
maybe?
was
Question
I
mark.
was under the assumption it was the prince, but
Yeah.
maybe they're gonna
that's
go.
what I thought too.
There's the historical figure, I think Sargon of Akkad. Maybe that's what they're going with here.
Yeah, it might still be a reboot. Like it might not be
Yeah.
the same prince. You know, it
It,
could be a
Maybe.
new
So
one.
or it
with
could be the
that
same prince,
information,
different story or something.
Yeah,
yeah, maybe this is tied in, and I'm wrong. This might not be the prince, and it might be a whole nother story that they're exploring.
Yeah, we don't know a whole lot about this game at all, kind of.
yeah.
Okay.
But you're right though. When I first saw the trailer, I was like, "Oh, so they gave the prince dreads?
Yeah,
Interesting."
Yeah.
I actually saw that and I was like, I disagree, but you could do what you want.
It is kind of a weird hair, an undercut dread mohawk.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah,
That's
I
a
like
choice.
you could do what you want. It seems a little too modern for me, but all right. I've been I don't want to say this lightly, but I have been a victim of a few games in the past. I bought No Man's Sky day one, and I've also bought Cyberpunk day one. And both of those experiences have kind of left with me with a sour taste in my mouth. However, that being said, I still played and beat Cyberpunk and still enjoyed the game despite its very rough start. And I'm happy to see that there's going to be DLC that I might go back to play because I've been
it.
so when Cyberpunk first came out, it played rough. So my first experience, half of the game was me fighting it, but the other half they sort of fixed it, and I finished it and I set it down. I always told myself I'm going to do one more playthrough when I can actually say this game is done. So this might be the opportunity with this Phantom Liberty to go through, play the story again, do it in a different way, and then also get new content on top of that. And then maybe I can come back and have a better view of this game. Because CD Projekt Red does good games. And I really, really, really want to like Cyberpunk more.
They have a
And
mostly pretty good track record.
yeah, most which is why I bought it day one. And that why did it have to be this game?
It's interesting that they're going with a sequel for I guess DLC for this game because the director and producer, the director and the producer of this game, two different people, both left CD Projekt Red to start their own company very recently, like shortly after Cyberpunk 2077 launched. They left because they presumably because of creative differences with or just how the project was run, I guess. He worked
Yeah.
on Witcher 3, he worked on a bunch of different things, and they started a new studio called Blank. This happened like all last week. So it's
good.
weird. I don't know. I mean, this must have him leaving must have been in the works for a while, must have been a process, and maybe hopefully leaving the development team to a state where they could release Phantom Liberty, but it's
Yeah,
just
some
weird.
outlines or something.
Yeah, like a production pipeline hopefully in place, because there was no production pipeline for Cyberpunk 2077 as far as I can tell. I'll link
Clearly.
I'll link beat 'em ups, CD Project are all liars, video, just this deep dive into how Cyberpunk 2077 as development went and the reason why it is the way it is. But it's just interesting. I think that it's really weird us seeing this game after him leaving. Like, he's not in a directing role or producing role at all. I don't know. Like,
Hmm.
a bunch of higher ups from CD Projekt all left at the same time, presumably
Well,
all because of Cyberpunk 2077, and now none of them are involved in it.
that could either be a good thing or bad thing. I'm not sure. They obviously saw the writings of the wall. So whether
Well,
they, yeah,
I like to think it's because the project manager, or again, I don't know too much about Cyberpunk 2077 and who exactly all was involved in that, and they're all Polish names, so I'm definitely not going to be able to remember them. But it's just interesting seeing this game launch after all of the people left due to the way that Cyberpunk 2077 was handled. And clearly it
actually,
was handled poorly, which led to a subpar game, which is why they left. So how are they doing this DLC now if the original guys aren't there anymore? I don't know, it's just
well,
interesting.
they
Maybe
must
that is a
have
good
enough
thing. I
left.
don't know. Well, yeah, I mean, enough of the creative team, maybe some people in the designer roles kind of, but then I think some of the designers also left. So I don't know.
Maybe
I don't know. It's
they
interesting.
hired in from elsewhere, or maybe they had to shift workers around because this is obviously not their only game that they're working on behind the scenes. So maybe they had to
No,
shift some resources around.
they're also working on the Witcher 1 remake. So maybe some of the pre-production team for that shifted gears onto this out of necessity. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going away from what was a, in my opinion, incomplete game to what looks like a very complete game to me, Sonic Superstars. So
Yeah.
I'm a big Sonic fan. There are some games in the series that are really bad, and by some I mean half. I still play a lot of them. It's still a guilty pleasure. But one of the games, at least in recent memory, that Sonic has actually hit home on was Sonic Mania. And this game looks to be basically taking that and running with it, literally. And it's
Running.
I don't know, it's I was trying to swing Sonic in there somehow. It it just looks fun. It just looks like fun. I like the art style. I like old Sonic games. I think most the only other one being I think Sonic Adventure 2. So I'm just gonna enjoy that game when it comes out in the same way I enjoyed Mania,
It's like
Yeah, I agree.
Sonic Mania meets Sonic Generations in a way,
except kept the good parts in Generations.
except get the good. I haven't played Generations, so I don't know. But I'm just basing that off of the shift in like the that intro sequence, kind of.
Yeah,
So I'm thinking, I don't know.
everything about it just looks like good old time.
They even got classic Amy.
Yeah, I was gonna
That
say the characters. Oh, what's going
Just
on?
think,
Okay.
this could be the
it,
best
it,
Sonic game since Shadow the Hedgehog.
So switching over to another one, I actually think it's more than just me that's looking forward to this. Is Clockwork Revolution. That
Mhm.
the art style, the gameplay, everything about it screams BioShock, and specifically BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
And it just looks like fun. I like the world. It's unique. I specifically like that opening shot, and I don't know why. I really like that man that's walking down the street on like a treadmill that's moving like with like I don't know it just has this game seems to have some character in it and I enjoy that in my games where they actually bring me into a world, show me what this is all about, maybe give me a good story. The gameplay and everything, it looks like stuff that we've seen before, which I think we're coming to an age where there's going to be a lot of that. So I want to
Sure.
see what else they do different, specifically with the story and with the world that they're crafting in front of me. And I think we already said it before, Gerardo, you had a perfect way of wrapping up this game, which is BioShock meets Sonic CD when it comes to like the what looks to be that time travel mechanic of
Yeah.
adjusting the past to influence the future and going back and forth. I think that's what they're getting at here.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of the steampunk aesthetic. Uh, if I see something steampunk, like if I see like brass little steam levers or cog wheels or something, it immediately catches my eye.
Fires
And
up that little reptilian brain.
yeah, I'm like, ooh, what's that? And so I immediately like start zoning in, especially if there's airships. There's a lot of aspects about this game that really intrigue me. And if they can do the time travel part of it in a really fun, puzzly way, then that'll be super cool. It looks like there's going to be some, the tagline, control your future, It seems like there's going to be some really interesting story implications, but I would also like to see some gameplay implications to it.
The in a perfect game, if you can weave your gameplay into a story element, I think that's what really, that's like a hallmark of a good developer.
Yeah.
Beyond that, instead of Elder Scrolls, which near and dear to my heart, I'm waiting for that. I'll wait another 10 years for that. I will call out of work for a month if need be. Instead of that, we get Avowed. Depending on how big of an Elder Scrolls fan, you may or may not care. However, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is made by Obsidian, right?
Yes.
And these are the same people that do very well with their open world RPGs, and they make some of the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. Fallout New Vegas is the best Fallout game. No one can tell me otherwise.
Obsidian did
and
Fallout?
I
New Vegas?
Did New Vegas specifically.
Oh, okay.
They did New Vegas.
Okay.
So they were given, and they were given the Majora's Mask treatment. You got to do it in a year.
Oh, okay.
So they basically took Fallout 3 and then made New Vegas. But besides that, Avowed looks like the same thing, but with more time. And what would Obsidian do if they did the Elder Scrolls franchise?
So I think
that's what I'm getting from this.
I think that this is technically the Pillars of Eternity franchise.
Yeah.
So this takes place in the same world as Pillars of Eternity.
Is that an Obsidian-based game?
Yeah, that's in the Obsidian franchise. So Pillars 1 and 2.
It plays differently.
It plays differently, but this is technically like an open world Pillars of Eternity in the same world game.
My statement still stands. They could still make it in a pre-existing world, but what would their take on such a genre and what they can do with basically Bethesda's Elder Scrolls to Obsidian's Avowed? I want to see what they can do. And judging by their track record, I am looking forward to this. So I am okay if Elder Scrolls takes its time, because I think I have something really special in the works when it comes to Avowed. So for the Summer Games Fest, they had it was Xboxes, but they had their one star, the star amongst them all, and that was Starfield.
But
it was the star in the sky. And that was another one that, at least for me, going in, I didn't know if I cared anything about Starfield, because I've been hearing the rumors behind the scenes that because of Starfield, we're not getting Elder Scrolls 6 anytime soon. And so that left a sinking feeling in my heart. After watching the playthrough, the playthrough, the launch trailers, them going through it for 40 minutes or so, I think I can safely say I am optimistically interested, and I feel as though I will probably get this game. And not only that, it will probably take me through winter to play through the whole thing. And that's saying a lot, because this game comes out in September. Early September.
Yeah.
And I will take that L on my sleeve, as well as the W. That I predicted, or I hoped for it and predicted wrong. That but essentially, and it, for me at least, it piggybacks off of Avowed. Avowed and Starfield are like Elder Scrolls and Fallout, in a way for me, where Starfield is from Bethesda, and a lot of the things that I'm seeing from Bethesda and their previous games, I'm seeing reiterated here. Specifically, what I'm thinking is the face-to-face talking that you see throughout the trailer. Whenever your character interacts with somebody, it zooms in a little bit on their face, and they're talking to you. In the latest Fallout, or the latest Bethesda game in Fallout 4, I'm not counting 76. In the latest Fallout game, they did a kind of like this movie studio thing where you talk and then they talk and then the dialogue's not all quite there. There's only like a few options to actually talk. And it seems more like
Yeah.
you're watching a movie and it's a little more cinematic. This way, which is my preferred way because it feels like an RPG to me, is up close, impersonal. You're talking directly to and fro someone, and it feels like you're playing a game. It feels like I'm in this world talking to this person, and I'm not some other person witnessing a conversation happening. I am actively engaging in it. That's
Yeah,
a lot.
you're
That's
the
a
other party.
Yes. I am the other party. There's
Yeah.
I don't recall if there was a voice for your character when they speak. I don't think there was. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I can't remember.
I can't remember. But Fallout 4 had that issue where your character had a set voice, and that took me away from the game. But if what I remember is there was no voice with this, it I think what I'm trying to get at is it feels much more RPG than the previous Bethesda games have felt to me. And that is a very key thing for me with Bethesda games is I want to go into a world being a nobody to create and build up myself. I don't want to have a pre-established story already lined out for me. I want to go into a world. I don't want to go into a story. I want to go into a world.
So from what they mentioned, there is, or rather, there are several different storylines, kind of a bit more Skyrim in that way, but you can just kind of ignore them, a lot like Skyrim in that way. You can just kind of go on and do your own thing. But I think that it would be lacking. It would be almost too No Man's Sky if there was no
Yeah.
story. You know?
Well, even okay, my favorite Bethesda game, New Vegas. Even New Vegas had a story, but the creativity that they wound with how you go about the story, you can do it any way you want. And I'm not talking about the Breath of the Wild way where you can experience the world how you want, so you'll just avoid interacting with like the creatures. I'm talking about, hey, you want to go take over New Vegas? Be my guest. You want to go give it to the cons? Be my guest. You want to go crucify everybody with Caesar's Legion? Be my guest. You want to just have it the way it is, or go off and go do the DLC stuff and end the world in nuclear explosion. Like that's the sort of thing that I want. I want the creative freedom with the way that they're gonna bring me the story. And it does need a story. You're right. We don't want this to be No Man's Sky. At least the early editions of No Man's Sky, which was a more I'm gonna say boring, where nothing really was happening. It was like, oh, make your own adventures. I'm like, yeah, but you're not giving anything to bounce off of, right?
It's like you want to either side with the Blades or go against the Blades, and that actually impacts the story in a meaningful way.
Yeah, or if they're creative enough with it, have a third or fourth option. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what happens if I just ignore it? Will the story just continue on without me? And then all of a sudden I come back, I'm like, oh wow, while I was off doing something else, things were still happening, and that impact the story. Or maybe you can get some third party in and do a whole like that sort of thing is what I really want out of this game. If they can successfully deliver that, that was my favorite part of New Vegas. That could easily be my favorite part of this game.
And it seems like it's going to be pretty expansive because they mentioned somehow there's going to be one single story, but that there's over 1,000 planets. Like, or 1,000, like, not all the planets are going to be, like, inhabitable, so maybe not all of them will have, like, story elements per se, but there's at least going to be, like, 1,000 planets that you can actually, like, set foot on and, like, walk around. And even if, like, 1/10 of those, if 100 of them have, like, people living on them, and like story and plot and stuff going on with them, then that means that this is going to be a pretty expansive game, like possibly even bigger than Skyrim, as far as like because Skyrim had like mainly like 6 different, like 5, arguably 6 different storylines that you can go through. And if this is going to be a similar approach with many different storylines, which they basically confirmed. They said that there's going to be several different stories and that you can ignore all of them.
Yeah.
It seems like it's going to be a bit more of a kind of pick your own adventure, build your own adventure the way that you want to play through this world kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably almost definitely means, especially if there's multiple factions, that you're going to be able to kind of pick which factions you're going to be siding with, or, oh, I decide to do this mission in a different way, which they kind of already also said. Like uh, you can like loot certain ships nearby, or you can like do this other thing instead. You can like hail them. There's different ways to kind of go about the story. And if you can do that with story elements too, which I don't see why you wouldn't be able to for an open sandboxy type experience like this, then that means it's going to be like really, really expansive. And for a
Yeah.
game that's apparently 25 years in the making, according to them, this is kind of the only game that could do something like that.
Another thing that I would like to talk to is at least the gameplay aspect of what it is I'm seeing. I like the fact that we're also going to be on a ship and we're going to be doing uh, space fights and whatnot to
Yeah.
mix up the way that we're going to engage with what the game and with the world they're crafting. Because I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, how are you going to differentiate the combat from like Skyrim or Fallout? Because Bethesda
Hmm.
games, generally speaking, are pretty straightforward with how they deal with combat, and sometimes that can get a little repetitive. I'm thinking Skyrim. If you have a sword, you swing it, and the difficulty of the enemy is not necessarily how they interact with you or how they fight you. It's just how many swings does it take before they drop. And
So
I'm
from what
hope,
we saw it's going to be like a first person shooter,
yeah,
kind of similar to Destiny. Like when I was watching the gameplay, like the combat portion, it was just straight up Destiny to me. Like
hmm
I can even see which guns were clearly inspired by guns in Destiny. There was like the low gravity jumping. It's Destiny.
hmm
So if they can do something similar, like feeling the Destiny like a PvE part, I think that it could be way more interesting than just like Skyrim, where you're basically just hitting or shooting magic at a guy until he falls.
yeah, or the probably the easier comparison would be Fallout, where everything is a bullet sponge, and the difficulty isn't necessarily on your placement or the skills that you're bringing to the table or identifying patterns in enemy attacks. It's more of how much damage can I do before I or they drop. and
Hmm.
the moment I think Bethesda can figure out that, and hopefully that'll come with this game. I think I don't know how this game can't be number one for the year. I know we have
I
Tears of
mean,
the Kingdom, but this looks to be a pretty big game.
I think that it will be a little bit more position based. It will be more generic first person shooter because from what or generic as far as like an open world space exploration game like Destiny goes. But I think that it's going to be more position based because that's what we've seen so far. And also that's what Bethesda has the most experience making. Specifically, I'm thinking of like Doom and Wolfenstein. The modern games are a lot more Halo like, where the positioning and where you are, like hiding behind of things or when to use what ability, it seems like it's going to be a bit more Doom like in that way.
hmm
So I wouldn't expect them to be bullet sponges, more puzzly type things.
Yeah.
Because all of the gameplay that like footage that we're looking at right now, for example, they're going down pretty quickly. It's going to be a little bit more generic, I think, in that way.
Yeah.
If I had
Also,
to guess.
some of the weapons look pretty fun.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to think back and to Fallout 4, and some of the weapons that were in that game, and like as much as there was a lot of customizations in that game to change the way your weapon performs, it's still very much the samey. Oh, I was gonna say versus what I like an example that I would bring up is like Dead Space, where all the guns that they would introduce in that game perform very different to each other, and they all have different purposes.
Yeah, even like this little like weapon tree right here reminds me a lot of the weapon wheel in Doom, the modern
hmm
Dooms games. It seems like each one is going to have a little bit more of its own purpose. Like oh, you use this weapon for this purpose, or there's a bunch of enemies, I'm going to switch to this weapon really quick, or there's a lot of cover here, so I'm going to be able to switch to the sniper weapon or something. So it seems like it's going to be a little bit more strategic in that way.
Yeah, that's 12 slots. That's a lot of quick decision making or quick scenarios to adapt in. That's actually quite a lot.
Yeah,
It's much more than the typical four, maybe 8 that you'd normally see.
I wouldn't be surprised if you run into enemies on a planet that are like 20 levels higher than you and are huge bullet sponges.
That is another thing that I really hope they consider. RPGs, I don't like RPGs that have a scaling effect with the player, where you can go anywhere you want, and as long and everyone, all the enemies and every interaction is going to be tailored to whatever you are at currently. I don't like that. It doesn't make me feel like it's a world. It makes me feel like it's a simulation, and I want to be in a world.
That's one of the big things that took me out of Destiny, is that I was running around in this world and all of a sudden I'm up against like a level 80 like alien thing from Venus or something. I'm like, okay, well, I guess because I'm only a level 25, I can't do this part yet, even though it's just an area of the open world that I should be able to just go through, you know? So it was an FPS, but it focused a little bit too much on the RPG mechanics in that way. And this game doesn't look like it's, I don't know, maybe it'll scale. Maybe it'll be more like a scale-based thing, like the enemies ramp up in difficulty the higher level that you get. But it also could be like, this planet is basically inaccessible to you. You can go there, but it would be a mistake.
It would make sense considering if there's multiple planets and maybe like 1% of the planets are actually habitable. You were to go to a planet that is just insanely hostile against you. That would make sense in a galaxy game. Odds are you're not just going to be able to go to any world you want and have the roughly similar level of difficulty.
I mean, to an extent, yeah.
They didn't say that about difficulty. They did talk about how far you can travel, and they said that you have to upgrade your ship before you can travel to the farthest worlds in the game. So there's gonna be layers of the map that you can't go to in the beginning of the game, and I would expect those layers to be higher level.
Yeah, that's actually fine, I think.
That's one way of dealing with it, and I think I can be. Then it feels more like a traditional RPG style, which I'm still fine with.
Now that we've recovered and had ourselves a little chat, what did you think?
Leave us a comment on YouTube and like the episode.
That really helps us out.
We're also on Twitter and Instagram at the Low HP Podcast, if you want to reach out there.
And subscribe if you want to catch more of us on YouTube.
We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Links in the show notes as always.